So this is very good, but our index page is not very informative. If we go into the dashboard, we can see what we have in the database, but if we go to our index page, we see exactly nothing. So what I would like to do here is put some kind of grid, essentially here, smack in the middle of the page, that shows us which kind of olives we have in the database. So we could do it by hand. We could read the entries from the database and build a table. We did this in a previous lecture, but what I want to do here now is to use the grid of Py4Web, which is documented here as the grid. So to do so, I go to my controllers, and where I import the form, I also want to import the grid. So from Py4Web.utils again, .grid this time, I want to import the class grid, which will enable me to construct the grid, and also grid class style Bulma, which is useful for styling it. Okay, and here in my index, I'm now gonna put some more interesting content, and I want to do it like this. So the index, I also want to respond to another URL, not only index, but also action index with a path, okay? Because this grid will sometimes use a path for responding to queries, okay? So I want to do this. So typically, when you insert a grid, if you want to have actions, you say also method is equal to post and get. But in our case, we will be just doing gets, and so I will be just using these. Okay, particularly simple for this example. So now I say path is equal to none, so that we have an optional argument. Okay. And then here I can create my grid, and I say grid is equal to the grid constructor. So the first argument of the grid is the path. That's why I needed to define it here, and that's why I needed to define it here. Okay. This is essentially used by the grid in the browser to communicate more detailed information to the server. Then we have to say which query generates the grid. Normally we could say, for example, all the olives that have been created by the user who is logged in, or one of these things. In this case, I just want to get the list of all the olives, so I can say db olives.id is greater than 0, which is a way to say just give me all data in the database. I can say search queries is equal to none. This essentially will prevent a search bar from appearing on top. I just don't want it at the moment, I guess. Search form is equal to none as well, for the same reason. Then there is a big issue. Normally the grid that is provided to you by Py4Web is able to let you edit, insert, delete, and add the data. So it is very powerful. That is true in theory. In practice, I personally differ perhaps from other developers for Py4Web because I never use or very rarely use those options. The problem of using those options is that if I make, for example, one of those, if I say that the grid is editable, you can actually edit the entries, you lose the ability to declare your own validation. You lose essentially the ability to customize the forms, to add and edit exactly to your taste. And perhaps I'm a little bit pickier than normal, but I always like to completely customize these forms. For example, in this case, we customize them by creating our own validators. So here I just want to disable these additional features of the grid that can be useful, but not in our case. So we say editable is equal to false, then deletable is equal to false. So you cannot edit, you cannot delete, you cannot see the details, and you cannot create new entries. Okay, I invite you to explore these options if you like, but I want to keep them switched off for the moment. Grid class style, I want to say that it's gonna be grid class style Bulma, so that the grid is fairly well styled. Form style, I'm not sure that this actually matters, but I will give it form style Bulma. Okay, and that's gonna be it for the moment. Okay, so that's all I do. And now I return to the view my grid. And in the view that is in index.html, here below this button, I'm gonna put my grid. Okay, so I'm gonna just do this. So let's see what happens. I reload, keeping an eye for errors. So far there are no errors. I go back to the index here. I reload. Oh, and I get this. This means essentially that it has put the class there, but it hasn't done anything. And this is completely my error. I just want to show you how it looks. It has laid out, it's a grid object, but this is because I'm used to Web2Py, in which you could do that. Now I have to say here grid.render. And this renders the grid. It was just my mistake. So if I wouldn't have needed to reload if I change just the template. But if I go here and now I reload, I actually see the grid. Okay, so this gives you a quick way to display data in the database. And I invite you to look at the grid options. There are very many of them. You can look at the signature, for example. This grid knows how to paginate, how to divide the entries in pages of 10 or 20 of them so that you don't present too many at once. It has many other options, okay? So this is just the most basic use of a grid. And again, you create it in the controller and then you pass it in the template.